It's time for our weekly recap. For those who have seen these past videos, every single week we sit down with the notes that we get from our coaching that we do with our clients all over the world, all different industries, and pull some of the top things that we got as takeaways. And one of the reasons why at Life Pulse is we're very big on taking knowledge and applying it properly. That's what we define as wisdom, using the correct knowledge in the correct time in the correct way to get the desired results. So with that, we take it seriously that we're also a student of even our own programs and the things that we go into. So here are some of the main things we got this week, and I'm going to give you just high-level stuff and happy to explain any more. If any of these make sense, you just reach out to us. I'd love to dive deeper in it. But this one, big one, imposter syndrome, something that we run into a lot with people who are at the executive level, the entrepreneur level, the manager level, even in that pro athlete world, a lot of imposter syndrome. And what happens is everyone seems to be asking themselves the same question. Why am I here? Now, that question's a good question if there's a different meaning to it. A lot of people will say, why am I here? And it's going to be based on something along the lines of, do I belong? That's bad. But instead of going, why am I here? Do I belong? The better question is in more of a curious way is, why am I here? Like, why am I positioned here? How do I serve? Now, when we get people who are suffering with imposter syndrome, the intentionality that comes with our programming, the structure that we combine that with, tends to be what gets them into a mobility or a movement that gets them through a lot of this. But the biggest focus is, don't think about it as, do I belong? Think about it as, how can I serve, right? Same question, why am I here? But not, do I belong? It is more about, how do I serve? So that is one of the many ways we get rid of imposter syndrome. The next one came up of building intimacy through patience, not pressure. How do you fix intimacy, whether it's in a marriage, whether it's in a business, whether it's in a partnership? It is not through pressure. It is through patience. Now, with that doesn't mean you roll over and just let the other person do whatever it is they're supposed to do or go wild. But it's interesting. Are you trying to apply pressure to rebuild intimacy, or are you taking the patience to actually rebuild intimacy? Again, that word intimacy makes people think, oh, no, that's just what happens behind closed doors. And that's one of the biggest mistakes you can make. Intimacy is between two people. And how do you have an intimate interaction, not just a romantic intimate interaction, but understanding how do you connect with people on a deeper level than just the surface level that the majority of us go into? Again, it's through patience. It's not through pressure. All right, keep it going. We're going to talk about defining your ideal referral and ask for it constantly. Know who it is you're looking for, whether it's from a sales perspective, whether it's from a desired outcome perspective. Know who you're looking for, what you're looking for, and talk about it. Now, don't be annoying about it, and don't be abusive about it. And what I mean by that is leveraging other people's networks unfairly, but make sure those who you know have a desire to help you, there are people in your lives that actually have that, know what it is you're looking for, whether it's a certain client, whether it's a certain opportunity, whether it's a certain job, whether it's a certain person. Know the ideal referral you're looking for and talk about it constantly. Let's talk about not abandoning your tools or what it is that got you here when things get hard. One of the biggest mistakes people have is they go through a crazy growth experience. They have all this foundational truth that they lean on to get where they need to go. And then the second it gets hard, it's like they throw out all the foundational truth and they start focusing on how they think they can fix it. The ego comes out, the arrogance comes out, and it's really because fear pops up, that crocodile brain starts rocking and rolling, and you're just trying to survive. Do not abandon the tools that got you here when things get tough. In fact, usually double down on the tools, and that doesn't mean you stick in your old ways. That means keep what works. Use what works and use it to the most of its ability. Let's talk about being proactively honest about uncertainty, right? Being proactively honest about uncertainty. I think a lot of leaders that we work with have the concern of not knowing, saying, I don't know, as if that means you're inferior or you're incapable of leading. In fact, I think the best leaders are comfortable saying, I don't know. Because when you say, I don't know, it doesn't mean you're not able to lead. It just means you don't have the right answer. So the best you're giving is a guess based on some information. And honestly, if you've led enough and you've worked with enough people, the majority of the paths we take are uncertain. That's why high risk, high reward. That's why they get paid the way they get paid. So with that being said, don't worry, be proactively honest about your uncertainty, and you will find people will give grace, people will follow, and people will trust you more when you're honest about it. Proactively honest. Lead with relational value in partnerships, understanding relational value, leading with that, recognizing that I am going to give you value. That is why this partnership is worth it. If you have a partnership where you're trying to take, you're not trying to give, or you're not willing to give, you've kind of put that wall up, that partnership is not going to be dead. It's already dead. The question is, when does that death come to the surface? With that being said, relational value is the key to partnerships. Freedom is created by structure, and that's something to really focus on, right? It's not hindered by it, right? Freedom is built on structure. It's not hindered by structure. We need structure. Structure brings freedom, and rhythm brings peace. If you've heard us do a keynote, you've heard us talk about that a ton. Hire according to your mission, not to get rid of your short-term pain. Whatever that short-term pain is, hire according to your mission, making sure the people you are bringing on are in alignment. Now, if you're needing hands, you're needing arms, you're needing hands and feet to get a job done, that's a different story. But make sure when you are hiring, you're focusing on your mission, not just to solve that short-term pain if you can avoid it. Lead with value beyond your core deliverable. This is huge. A lot of our clients in the financial world, they always wonder, how do I separate myself? Because what they're doing is really a commodity, and it's depending on how much I get on a return. And they have a certain skill set, but the problem is a deliverable is the same. They manage my money. So we work a lot with the financial space. And what I find is you actually lead with more value than you do just the core deliverable. If you're coming in as a financial advisor, impressing me because you're a financial advisor, that's expected of you. A CPA, an attorney, you're expected to do that. Show me more. Give me something more. And you are going to see people will say yes faster to whatever it is you want. Turn internal gratitude and let it be shown as external appreciation. I think it's so interesting when people or clients tell me how grateful they are, but they never show appreciation. The truth of your gratitude is shown in your appreciation. If you are not an appreciative person, you actually don't have the gratitude that you might be pretending that you do. How do you become more appreciative? You actually become more grateful. Gratitude, being grateful is a choice. You make that choice. The byproduct is external appreciation. Let's use the structure rules of engagement to solve conflict. All right. So we have an entire program that we call rules of engagement, where we sit down with both parties or whoever's involved in this disagreement, whether it's an entire leadership team, a board, two individuals, and we put down rules of engagement. What are we talking about? What's the topic? What's off the table? And what are we going to do to make sure we're not part of the problem? What are the negative parts about me that I'm going to restrain? I'm going to hold back, so that way this conversation can get to the point. What's the desired outcome? And then, man, we run with it. We come in, we're almost like a referee. So you have a mediator of some sort, but you have a clear path knowing where you want to go. All right, here's one that's interesting. Everyone is stuck somewhere, but the true freedom comes when you expose the true gap. Everyone is stuck somewhere. It doesn't matter who it is I'm talking to. There is always a part of where they are versus where they want to be. There is always a divide, which we call a gap. Where you truly experience that growth is when you expose the true gap. Couple more real quick. Focus on high impact, not just high output. And this is huge. The most high performers, which we call optimal performers, the people that are a whole level above high performers, the top performers, they focus on impact, high impact versus high output. Yes, with high impact, you're going to produce high output. But if all you're focusing on is the high output, you're lost. It's going to be a tough go for you. I can promise you that. All right. Effectiveness must come before efficiency. Too many times we are sitting here and we are focusing on being effective, but not worried about the lack of efficiency. Technology, the pace in which things go. We can do things a very effective way, which might take more time, or we can do things in an efficient way, which might be less valuable. So do you want to do more of less value or do less of more value? And I think the less of more value is the better way and the more sustainable way for our clients to live. Only make commitments you are actually willing to enforce. So when you're setting standards with people and you're having this conversation, only make commitments you are actually ready to enforce. And then finally, measure actions as much as you would measure results. Now, this is a touchy one because we all love to talk about results. But let me explain something to you. If you are not setting action-based goals and result-based goals and time-based goals, and you're not measuring them all equally, you are missing out on literally 2/3 of the focus on how we get things done. So with that being said, that is our weekly recap. I'm so excited to share them with you. This is one of my favorite things to do, to take all the things that we learned through teaching others, because when you teach, you also can still learn. And these are things that came up in conversation with understandings and truths that we were able to offer. And that's why I love doing these weekly recaps. So review them. Let us know which ones make the most sense to you. And if you want us to dive deeper in any one of them, shoot us a message. We'd be happy to share and go a little deeper. We'll see you next week.